Welcome back to Iraqi Dinar, everyone. It's great to have you here. Today we're diving into a major developing story that has the entire dinar community buzzing, the recent WTO visit to Iraq and why so many analysts, including Frank26, believe this moment could signal the possibility of a new Iraqi dinar rate incoming. We're going to walk through everything naturally, clearly, and with that same engaging tone you expect from this channel. So, sit tight because this update is one of the most important ones we've seen in weeks, and it could reshape the entire conversation around Iraq's currency reform journey. The energy surrounding this WTO visit is far different from the typical diplomatic trips we've seen over the years. People aren't excited because of a simple handshake or a staged press photo. The excitement comes from the timing, the nature of the delegation, and the economic context in which this visit took place. Frank26 made it clear that events like this don't happen casually. They're strategic, deliberate, and connected to bigger financial steps happening behind the scenes. When a major global organization arrives right at the moment when Iraq is pushing trade reforms and stabilizing its financial structure, you know something meaningful is unfolding. This is why today's breakdown matters, because understanding the context reveals why investors are paying close attention. Frank emphasized that the WTO is not visiting Iraq just to observe or talk vaguely about trade relationships. They're engaging with Iraq during a very sensitive financial window, and their presence signals evaluation, alignment, and forward movement. Iraq has long wanted full integration into the global market. To accomplish that, they need transparency, compliance, digital banking readiness, and most importantly, a stable and functional exchange rate. According to Frank, Iraq has spent years building toward this exact moment, and the WTO acknowledging their progress is a sign that the world is finally noticing. One of the biggest talking points is timing. The WTO arrived as Iraq activates investment zones, finalizes trade agreements, and pushes its digital banking systems into full operation. That isn't a coincidence. These pieces fit together like a strategic sequence. Frank explained that these synchronized steps often happen just before a nation strengthens its monetary framework. Iraq is clearly trying to move away from being a reactive local economy and shift into a competitive international player. And to do that successfully, the dinar must eventually be at a rate that matches global standards. A lot of people ask why the WTO would care about Iraq's currency at all. Frank responded simply, global trade requires stability. Companies that trade across borders need reliable exchange rates. Investors need predictability. Economies need structure. Iraq cannot fully open its markets or invite serious global investors unless its currency reflects real stability. The WTO's involvement is not about controlling Iraq's exchange rate, but it does show that Iraq is stepping into a stage where economic consistency matters at a global level. That's why investors are paying close attention to every move. What's also interesting is how unified Iraq's government messaging has become. Instead of scattered statements, there's now a consistent tone about reform, international partnerships, and economic readiness. Frank believes this reflects a coordinated phase where Iraq is not just talking about change but preparing people for it. When nations move into this type of messaging style, it usually means they've reached a point where reform is no longer optional, it's underway. And monetary changes often accompany these shifts. Iraq is also presenting its economic strength more confidently. Whether it's revealing stronger oil revenues, showcasing banking improvements, or announcing global partnerships, Iraq appears to be stepping into a more assertive role. Frank pointed out that countries only project strength when they believe they have something strong to show. Confidence like this is often a sign of preparation for growth, for bigger economic milestones. And for structural changes the public may not yet see. Another powerful observation Frank made is that Iraq appears to be transitioning from a preparation stage to an execution stage. For years, Iraq has been laying groundwork for reforms but wasn't taking major visible steps. But now, the country is actively implementing new systems, complying with global standards and tightening its financial operations. The WTO visit makes more sense in this context. They aren't checking on hopeful ideas. They're checking on real progress, real upgrades, and real transformation. Many dinar holders have been waiting a long time for signs of actual movement, not just talk. And this moment is significant. While no one should expect an overnight leap, the indicators are becoming too strong to ignore. Frank reminded everyone that global institutions don't get this involved, unless a country is entering a serious phase of economic transition. This visit shows that Iraq's progress is visible, measurable, and aligned with global expectations. Frank also clarified that the WTO does not control Iraq's exchange rate, but their involvement influences everything around it: trade policy, compliance, and competitive positioning. If Iraq wants to stand on equal footing with global markets, it needs a rate that supports stability and growth. The WTO's interest makes the idea of a future rate adjustment more logical and realistic within Iraq's long-term plan. Iraq's banking sector is also entering a new era. The rapid modernization of digital systems, international banking procedures, and electronic platforms shows that Iraq is building a foundation for financial transparency. Frank said no country upgrades their entire banking network for no reason. These kinds of upgrades usually precede deeper monetary steps, because a modern banking system is required before a country can move confidently into a new financial stage. Iraq's growing role in global markets is another major sign. Their partnerships are expanding, foreign companies are showing interest, and the country is focusing heavily on infrastructure and technological advancement. These aren't actions of a nation staying isolated, they're signs of a nation preparing to compete internationally. Frank said Iraq is laying foundations that will last, and strong foundations usually lead to stronger economic moves down the road. Another important observation is the government's tone regarding the dinar. They no longer dismiss questions. Instead, they talk about strengthening the private sector, improving monetary stability, and preparing for economic transformation. According to Frank, these messages aren't random, they're shaping public expectations. Governments rarely speak like this unless big steps are being prepared in the background. We also have to recognize how geopolitics influences this moment. Iraq's global alliances are strengthening, and powerful partners give global organizations confidence to engage more deeply. Frank said that Iraq's growing international presence is one of the reasons why the WTO's visit feels so impactful. A country with strong allies and a developing economic identity becomes a much more attractive partner for global institutions. Investor psychology plays a huge role here too. When big signals like this appear, the community becomes energized. Not because they expect an immediate rate change, but because these signs suggest Iraq is actively moving forward. Frank encouraged everyone to stay calm but informed. This visit is one of those milestones that tells investors the direction is still forward and the path is becoming clearer. People are also wondering whether Iraq is finally ready for true global integration. Frank says the indicators point toward yes. Iraq is modernizing customs, improving logistics, investing in export infrastructure, and strengthening its compliance framework. Countries don't make these moves randomly, they make them when they expect global participation to increase. And global participation usually requires a stronger exchange rate framework. The Central Bank of Iraq is playing a critical role here as well. Their steps towards stability, transparency, and compliance are accelerating. Frank believes the CBI is preparing for the type of environment where Iraq participates more actively in global finance. A rate that reflects real economic value is a natural requirement. The WTO's visit signals that Iraq's institutions are being recognized and validated for their readiness. Iraq's private sector is also gaining strength, and that matters a lot. A healthy private sector needs a strong monetary foundation. Frank said private sector growth is a major indicator of readiness for monetary change, because businesses need stable exchange conditions to thrive. As the private sector rises, so does the urgency for an improved currency structure. Digital financial integration is another area that's making rapid progress. Iraq is adopting modern payment systems, verification procedures, and compliance software that match international standards. These steps reduce risk and improve transparency. Frank explained that digital readiness is one of the strongest signs of a nation preparing for future Financial adjustments, international confidence is another huge factor. When organizations like the WTO step forward and engage directly, it boosts Iraq's credibility. And credibility is essential before any nation makes significant economic moves. Frank said that this visit isn't symbolic, it's a real show of confidence. And confidence at this level rarely happens without something significant developing behind closed doors. Iraq's overall economic trajectory is finally showing long-term strength. For the first time in years, the country is maintaining consistent growth indicators. Investment is rising, diversification is expanding, and economic planning is becoming more organized. These are the conditions under which exchange rates typically shift. Frank believes Iraq is not the unstable country it once was. It's becoming stronger, more stable, and more strategic. Frank made it clear that no one can predict a date or a number for a new rate. But he also made it clear that Iraq is positioning itself for major financial evolution. The WTO visit adds heavy weight to the idea that Iraq is entering the final stages of preparation. Whether that results in a new rate soon or a gradual process, the direction is unmistakably positive. As Iraq continues taking these steps, it's important for the community to stay grounded and informed. Frank encouraged everyone to follow developments closely because staying aware will help investors recognize the signs when the time comes. The WTO visit is one of those signs, a sign that Iraq is not only talking about reform but actively building it. The main takeaway from this update is simple: Iraq is moving forward. The WTO visit validates years of slow but steady progress. Frank's analysis gives us a clearer understanding of why this moment is so important. Iraq's readiness for deeper global integration is growing every single day. And with that readiness comes the possibility of an exchange rate that aligns with global reality, not the outdated rate Iraq has been trapped in for years. As we wrap up this breakdown, the excitement in the dinar community is understandable. This is a major moment that could influence Iraq's economic direction for generations. Whether the new rate arrives soon or emerges in stages, the direction is finally moving upward. Thank you for joining us today on Iraqi Dinar. Stay alert, stay informed, and stay hopeful, because the next chapter of Iraq's monetary journey may be closer than anyone expects.